kind of footloose, isn't it? It's like the town that banned dancing.
I don't believe it's an accident.
You're allowed to scream at a dying animal, but you can't go to a gig, yeah.
Sorry, it's another world for me.
So I've been waiting for the Japanese to develop water-cooled underwear. Now I suppose we're going to just have like oxygen tents that we all walk around in. I haven't got a clue. Who knows what's going to happen?
You know, we see the spikes again happening in Europe, but the big difference, what I see here, and I don't know, I'm not quite seeing the numbers in the States, but the deaths don't seem to be spiking at all. In fact, they seem to be dropping off. I mean, is it a case that you believe that potentially the virus will lose its its power, and like most viruses do, and it'll just stop being a very strong virus and become quite mild? Or is it because people are taking lots more precautions, certainly the elderly, the old people home, and so on?
Well, for me, it depends if I read the New York Times today or yesterday or last week. I mean, the stories change consistently. So everybody's now talking about herd immunity. Herd immunity is like the new kind of topic. Where are we getting to a point where enough people have had it that on some level they're slowing the expansion of the virus because they've had it and they have immunity or antibodies? But whether the antibodies last long enough, I don't know. I will tell you that when I first, in the beginning of this pandemic, my personal experience was you'd go out, everybody was wearing masks, people were being very careful, and then people loosened up a little bit. You could see it, what was happening on the beaches here in the US. There wasn't a lot of social distancing, and we kind of saw a spike. And so I think people are trying to figure out how to integrate this into their daily life, but the doctors will know better than I can. I personally think as soon as you open things up, put people back in audiences and crowds and whatever, going to spread again, even if it can't spread through some of the people who have immunity. I just don't think you can put people in arenas or venues without it spreading. But like I said, I have an insatiable appetite for the articles, and I'm reading everything, but it changes daily. There's different reports that are coming out of our medical community every day about this, and nobody seems to have kind of marched down the path.
No one knows, though. That's the whole thing. You know, how can anyone know if the doctors don't know? In the beginning, they said you don't really need masks, and now you're wearing masks. Obviously, it never made sense not to wear masks because obviously it's going to stop some germs, even if it isn't all the germs. But literally, in Miami, I've seen it because in Miami, once they locked down and it went well, and then once they opened up and when it blew up, we were the epicenter of the world. So, and it was because we opened everything up and people weren't being careful and people were going to bars and people were just going out like nothing, and the younger people thought it wouldn't affect them. And a lot of younger people got it. Now, they may not die from it, but they will give it to their grandparents.
I mean, I just wanted to come back on a couple of things quickly because I think there's this real problem, and it was in the discussion about America between the federal response and state response. So if you look at Governor Cuomo and even mayors, the Mayor de Blasio, often they have disagreements, there's confusion, and you have different things communicated and people don't know exactly where they are, right? So you have this problem in terms of communicating with the actual virus and what that means. You have an industry who are absolutely passionate about safety and concerned for their customers and making sure that they do things professionally. And in America and Britain, and a lot of our colleagues internationally in Asia and elsewhere, we're absolutely obsessive about doing brilliant, safe, professional events. But then there's a political component as well. Obviously, on the one hand, governments and local regions have told us to lock down and stop. They've then told us to take debt or finance to underwrite it. They haven't actually told us when they think it will be safe. I know Mike's going to talk a bit more about that because we've had to do some independent research. They haven't talked about when they think it's, and they're saying, well, let's just see as we go along. And even though they've done some really good things, they have funded some elements, as Mark said. And, I must say that MVT and others have done some sterling work and a lot of people have come together. The problem is that there's a gap between what is presented and a lot of honesty and then knee-jerk reactions. So I'm going to take a bit of a wider position on this, like knee-jerk reactions, shutting down air paths, closing local areas, and making statements that are contradictory. And I think we have to demand from our governments, and I think this is partly the role of industry associations, but also all of us as citizens. And all of us who are in the music and entertainment industry have a real relationship with a big demographic. And we should insist that there's some honesty. And even if the honesty means we just don't know, that's okay. But this constant changing from one thing to another, letting things happen, then shutting them down, being inconsistent means it becomes very difficult to plan from a business point of view.
We're obviously and fully understandably valuing, you know, the cost of human life. So on one side, we're completely getting it. The consequences of not taking action are incredibly clear. We all get that. What I think we're not putting on the scale enough is the consequences of ignoring culture, the consequences of accepting a reduced life, less enjoyment, less culture, less of everything. And unless we can truly value what we're giving up, how are we going to get it back? And I think what we've really got to do is assign some sort of value to what we're being forced to give up, and really get a movement behind saying it's not really acceptable for an extended period of time to give up this much.
Now, if it's true in Britain, for instance, you're 5 times more likely to die of the flu than of COVID, and if hospital admissions are down 99%, we do have to ask the question, why is the case that outdoor events seem to be not on the agenda for a long period? And even indeed why, you know, nightclubs are not, with a certain demographic, particularly as the amount of younger people that actually have had fatalities with this illness have been very low. That's not being cavalier, that's being very, actually, we need to protect the high-risk groups and the vulnerable groups. But this kind of sense in which it's being a cavalier response to a range of sectors that actually, you know, each of our economies are highly dependent on. And I think we all have to be a bit more critical whilst being understanding. It's very difficult circumstances for everyone. But I think that whilst Mike will talk a bit more about the specifics that he's been doing with the NTIA, great work, I kind of want to say that I think it's also, as all of us as citizens, we have a responsibility to hold our local elected candidates and also our national ones, hold their feet to the fire a little bit and say, our communal hubs, our places, not only do we want them open, but we need them to be open in a way that they can manage with a proper timeline and to be funded, because we've closed down on your say-so. And let's be honest, everyone's been very good.
So how do we get a balance between what we give up and what we protect? And I feel at the moment, the agenda is just about the saving of lives, and we are not looking at the consequences of the loss. And obviously there's various other consequences, you know, health and mental well-being and everything. So how do we balance this and get people to talk on the other side of the equation, just to balance the argument?
In Britain, we've had a lot of people now beginning to do, and we've had it in New York, in Long Island City and elsewhere, in LA, people have started doing sporadic events, particularly younger people. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm not surprised, right? They're hearing inconsistent stuff. People want to be out, they want to be dancing. And I think that what we have to do is be able to say, if we're going to have a response where everyone continues to have the same kind of reaction they did in the early days, where everyone volunteered and everyone comes behind it, we've got to be honest and we've got to be clear with people. And having these knee-jerk reactions when a few people get a bit of, you know, there are going to be some contaminations. There are going to be some increases. Does that mean a whole area has to be locked down? Does that mean an air path has to be?
Just before you guys came on, we were talking about testing. Well, I was talking about testing as a model, talking about how we fix the problem, like, you know, getting Glastonbury to run next year, possibly with a testing model 7 days before you travel. And I really wish, instead of everybody being scared of this as a concept, that people start like looking at this as a way forward, because otherwise we're just waiting for our industry to crumble. We have no timeline of when they're going to stop insisting on fully socially distanced venues. We can't operate like this. It's completely unsustainable. So we need to come up with solutions so we can run shows in the safest possible way.
We've got to figure out what is the solution to going forward. And those that can think about it to move forward and to take the youth forward in a way where they can reconnect with each other. Because right now, all we're doing is sanitising the fuck out of everyone, making sure that no one wants to get next to anyone. We need to figure out a way how we can go around that.
Forget politics, but we've got Boris Johnson in charge of the UK response. He nearly died in intensive care of COVID. He's too fucking emotionally involved to make objective fucking decisions at the moment. And that's not about politics. That's just reality. How can you be objective when you nearly died of the thing you're trying to solve? You might just get a little bit, but you know. So I really think an objective response, balancing balancing. We don't want loss of life out of COVID. Of course we don't. But you know, I saw a talk where they estimated 50,000 people are going to die of cancer just in a 6-month delay in diagnosis. So let's balance the argument. That's all I think we should be doing.
And by the way, no one calls or speaks to anybody who knows the kind of thing I do about how our business works. They take advice off institutions, but no one actually talks to the people who actually make this work and know how it works and have done, you know, for decades. It's terrible, the incompetence of it when you look across to America and they understand the value of music culture. And don't forget, in Britain, I don't think there's more festivals per hectare than any other country in the world. And every single one of them is in jeopardy.
Everything's changing, not daily, hourly. It's just becoming a logistical nightmare. I don't know how we're going to actually move forward with a movie. Because I've just been offered a film. It's shooting in Portugal. All of a sudden, they said, okay, we're shooting in September. Now Portugal's going into lockdown. We'll shoot in November. The uncertainty around the film industry is horrendous. Like, nobody knows what they're doing. It's the same with everything, the F&B business, everywhere around the world. We really don't know what's going on.
What you're talking about, the uninsurable element, is absolutely right, Tamer.
Sure.
It's impossible to get a completion bond on the finance of your film without
Right, they're
insurance.
uninsurable, aren't we?
Exactly. There's no COVID insurance. Now, the UK government have announced a fund for insuring film and TV productions for COVID, but you've got to start filming before December. But you can't actually get through all the other hoops to get there before December. So it's fucked, basically.
You're completely right, Philip. Like, if say we're going to put a film into production, we'll say, okay, we've set it up. We've got a tax break. We've got what we want. We've got a location. We're shooting in Edinburgh. All of a sudden, 2 days before the shoot, this is why we can't be insured. They'll go, Edinburgh's had a spike. We're locking it down. So we are so up in the air with it. We just don't know which way to turn, just like everything else. And another thing they're saying like, you've got a social distance, so you can't have any love scenes. You know, you can't do this, you can't kiss.
But you don't get any love scenes.
Thank God I'm too ugly to play the romantic lead. Do you know what I mean? I'm too ugly.
But you don't get those scenes anymore. Don't you worry about
that. I've never had them. I'm too ugly to play the romantic lead. But I do strangle people. I do strangle people. So I'm not allowed to even do that.
Yeah, they should really combine the role of COVID coordinator with the intimacy coordinator, really.
There you go.
I will tell you now that without Adolf Hitler, we would not be here enjoying our industry. And you're going to say, how did Adolf Hitler affect the way our industry has developed? Before the Second World War, the music industry was run by the Musicians Union. Every bar had people playing, musicians, blah, blah, blah. When the war came along, everyone wiped out. So when the industry started up again, DJs started, that's when the DJ format carried on. Because before that, the Musicians Union was so powerful, they would never have allowed the DJs to be able to go into a venue and play, because they would have gone, no way you can do that. Their power was diminished because everyone got caught up, went into war. And it basically, how the whole of our industry has come about through that. And I see what this change that's come now, there is a definite reset happening. And we've been lucky because in our section of time for the last 30 or 40 years, we've been at the forefront of watching new subcultures turn over every 5 or 10 years. And it got up to 2000, and I ask yourself, what can you look back and say, this reminds me of 2010, 2015, nothing. But I can tell you now, say, give me an image in your head of the 90s, come to it. Give me an image in the 80s, come to it. Give me an image of the 60s, you'll come to it. What happened after the year 2000? I'll tell you what happened. This motherfucker. And this motherfucker corralled everyone into knowing where you are, what you're doing, and all you're doing is giving information. People are so freaked out about, oh, well, I have the vaccine, they're going to know where I am. They already know where the fuck you are. This is the only time in the world's humanity that every single country in the world has done the same thing. Never before in a lifetime, even countries that hate each other's guts and say, I'm not going to do it because they're doing it. Guess what? Everyone's done it. Why? Ask yourselves that. What is the fucking end story? So much has been taken away from us as we're looking in one direction. Slowly we are just giving up our rights to absolutely everything. And I'm not a conspiracy theory person, I was before, but now we've got this new breed of the fucking truth seekers. I'm like, hello. They're worse than ever before. So that's my 2 bob.
Whether we can cope or not from the virus is one question, but the reality is, if someone's got the virus, the quarantining of all the staff that have been within 2 meters of that person, the 14 days you have to stand them down. When you look at the actual consequences of one member of staff testing positive, or even their roommate testing positive, that is the real challenges here are the economics of how we are reacting to the virus.
I see it on the socials all the time. I don't know if I'll ever see you play live again. Audiences have been softened.
Write to your MP. The answer is to that person. Okay, well, write to your MP.
No, I'm talking about people from Holland and Japan.
If you write, I'm talking in the
not
UK.
just the UK. I'm talking about all. They've been softened to kind of accept this shit, right? But artists don't stand up because their manager, their agent, right? I'm here. I don't give a fuck what people say. I'm past that shit.
I thought rock and roll was rebellion, right?
Oh yeah, right. Until they talk to their manager and their PR, and I'm saying
I think now
they can use that
acts
power.
Can now start
they can
using
turn
their
it the other
power.
way.
We've got to get the audiences involved now. We really think they're the ones that will change
The
the
audiences
government's
have been
viewpoint.
battered.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I think they're
mentally battered into kind of submitting to that.
Everyone's
We
just
don't
gone
want to
along
take a
with
year
it.
off. The audiences are quite happy in fucking Bournemouth.
You know what though, if you look at social media as well, I mean, being a politician right now, and whether it's Labour in power or Conservatives in power, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. Whoever they are, if you want to lock something down, then everybody complains. If you want to open it up, a load of other people complain, and they're almost getting bullied by social media.
Yeah, but that is the problem, though.
That's why they keep
Social
flip-flopping.
media
Nobody
is
knows
the
what the
problem,
answer is, though. None of us
Media.
know
Exactly.
what the answer is.
Social media is the problem.
It's a
So
big
we've
problem.
got nothing to lose
Yeah.
if we start pushing
And
government.
they're flip-flopping because of reaction. And once they start seeing that, I mean, look at the conspiracy stuff coming out at the moment. I mean, you just don't know what the hell to believe
but
and
policy,
what not.
Look at the
policy is
A-levels.
based on social media response. Yeah, A-levels, anything. It's based on public reaction.
they're reacting.
Everything is
They're a
based
reactionary
on public
government at the
reaction or
moment.
public pressure. And unless we
Yes.
actually get behind and put public
Pressure
pressure,
on.
they don't react.
Yeah, but the
Now,
problem is,
look at-
Andy, there's a reaction on both sides.
No, but-
if you close something down, a
I
load
agree.
complain, and if you open it up, a load of other people saying you're
No,
risking
I
our
totally
lives.
agree, but,
So it's like-
but there is a
have
moral high
millions
ground
of
where
white
you
music
actually
fans.
do what you believe is right.
Right,
and
sure.
fuck what people think.
Yeah.
You do the right thing, not the thing that plays out
Save
best
our
in the
business.
media.
Yeah,
Save
sure.
our business.
And that's the problem, is nobody's actually doing what is right. They're doing what plays
But
out
it
in the
was
media.
easier for
Look,
governments to do that before social
Look,
media.
I'll give you an example.
It's
and
a
this
lot
is-
harder
I'll
now.
give you an example in Spain, right? So, organised activities are being shut down. The virus is not spreading in the bars. The virus is spreading when everybody's outside. They're going to people's hotel rooms. They're going to people's houses. They're locking down the easy things. We don't have a nightclub in San Antonio, and I shouldn't be saying this, but, we have a 368-room hotel. How many nightclubs do you think are happening every fucking night in the hotel rooms?
Yeah.
Not just in my hotel, in every hotel. Whether there's a pensioner hotel, there is a version of a nightclub happening in every fucking hotel room, in every fucking house. Tourists are bringing it to the island, and I think mainly the mainland Spanish tourists are bringing it to the island because that's the most infected place in Europe. But the virus is spreading through locals and communities, not tourists, because tourists don't know anyone. and they're not hanging out as much. It's the bigger the community is, the bigger the spread.
But that's the problem for live shows. Community spread locks down a city, and if you've got a gig, you're screwed. If you're in that city, you're stuck there with 20, 30 people. That's the problem with touring, because they've created all of these devolved little fucking Hitler laws. So the council, without going to court, can shut anything down. That's unheard of.
Do you honestly think the nightclubs are going to be open next summer?
If we still go along, if we go along with this current situation where everyone's going, oh my God, I'm so scared, blah, 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 instead of going, what is the practical solution-based answers to all these problems, you know, we aren't going to be running next year.
Yeah, but we need to face the fact that no one will be on the road next summer unless
we
somebody
start
fucking does something.
Start doing some testing.
Because, you know, High's announced their club lineup and they think, no chance that's going to be open unless something changes.
And we've already got councils on board that are willing to do this in the UK. We've just got to get the tests through. And then we'll start doing test models of, you know, a 2,000 cap gig, a 3,000 cap gig, because we've got, next summer has to run.
Yeah.
Like for all of us, nightclub, festival, touring, we have to be on the road next summer.
Yeah.
Or our business as we know it is not going, it's just over.
The reason bookings are massively up, and we've got 2.5 million of bookings for next year.
Yeah.
When you turn around to your customers and say you can't have your money back, but you can move to next year, they move to next fucking year. That doesn't mean they're happy. It doesn't mean they're going to come. It doesn't mean they're not going to get a refund next year. Because what the fuck is they going to be here next year? And if there's no clubs and no parties and no events, they'll go, fuck you, I want my money back now, please.
Or go to Croatia or Greece.
Yeah, exactly. So the point
Sardinia,
is, bookings are not booming for next year. What we've done is refuse to give anyone the fucking money back. And we, just like Live Nation have done. It's like saying the live music industry is booming because there's 8 million of people waiting for the next concert. Yeah, because we didn't fucking give them any money back. That's a totally different story to saying bookings are great for next year.
The sustainable bit of it is that nobody that does what we're talking about has been in a room to write a song for 6 months, because we're not allowed to. Right? So there ain't nothing to sell. No one's made. No, the creative people are not. Hold on, creative people are actually not doing. Right, I got a publishing deal. I haven't written a song in 6 months because I can't. Right, and nobody I know who does this, top to bottom. Albums have stopped. People can't go in studios. So fundamentally, we haven't got a creative process. The creative model's broken, and the creative model was already pretty shit. Right, when you look at pop music. It's not like Duran Duran in the 80s or Human League. And now it's completely broken, the creative model, right? So without that, what is there? Before we didn't give a fuck.
In the UK, I've got a 16-year-old. She's at every illegal rave. You name it, she's at it. And there's no social distancing.
I mean, there's so much unknown, and there's so many things that are done under the radar or whatever that people I still don't know, and the situation that we're getting into is very worrying.
We just need to all stick together, and I think it's pretty shit right now. It's a lot of for the smaller venues, for the pubs, for everything. It's not a good time for people.
The money people are seeing the impact of the climate. But this has really woken the people up to what's really going on. What can we really afford? Where should money be spent? Should there be a universal wage? I don't know what the future's going to bring, because I think after the mess, people are going to look at relationships in a different and maybe, hopefully, an improved way.